Hello everyone and welcome to the College Football Betting Pick Show for November 28th, 2020. My name is Dylan Burd, once again here on the Sports Bird podcast, and we got an interesting week in college football. We have some games going on right now as I record this on Friday. If you follow me on Twitter at sports_bird, you saw that I have Notre Dame -5 in this game. Pretty interesting. I have this game on my TV right now. It looks like there may be 7 million points in this game, so it's basically going to come down to who could end up getting stops, who's going to win this game. But as I said, because it is Black Friday, as I record this, we have some games here on Friday and then some games tomorrow on Saturday. This podcast, this video is going to focus all on the games for Saturday. The only pick I took on Friday was Notre Dame, so if you're following me on Twitter, you know that. So this will be 3 picks, 3 spread picks on Saturday. But before we get started, I just wanted to remind you to like this video and subscribe to this YouTube channel if you haven't already. This YouTube channel is one that I founded just back in September, so it is relatively new. If you are new to my content, I do my waiver wire show for fantasy football on Tuesdays, and I do my college football betting picks every single Friday. Also on Sal Vetri's channel, I do my NFL player prop show, usually every single Friday. This week it came out earlier because all the props that I did were on Thanksgiving. That was a great day. I went 7-1 on my Thanksgiving props. I also went 7-1 in NFL player props last week, so I'm on an absolute heater. Be sure to check that out in the link in the description if you love NFL player props as well. So, like I said, be sure to like this video, subscribe to me on YouTube. Also, if you are listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, be sure to leave a rating and review. That really helps me out a lot. And like I said earlier in this video, be sure to be following me on Twitter at sports_bird. I do add picks and bets as the day goes on, before games, whether it's night, whether it's the early games. Right before the games, I will possibly add some picks. So be sure to be following me there in case I do add any picks and you do want to see that. So be sure to follow me on Twitter at sports_bird. Now let's get started. So like I mentioned before, we got 3 spread picks this week. The first game that we're going to talk about, we have Michigan at home against Penn State. Michigan favored by 1 point in this game. Now, if you see my sweatshirt here, if you're watching the video, I am wearing a Penn State sweatshirt because Penn State is my alma mater. If you did not know that already, I just graduated from there in the spring, so I'm a die-hard Penn State football fan. This is the second time this season that I'm including a Penn State game in one of my bets during the show, so interesting to see that here. But let's get into the actual game. So preseason, you probably would have pegged this game as one of the best games in the Big Ten, maybe one of the best games that we would see all year in the country. Obviously expected to be probably between 2 top 15 teams. Instead, we now have an 0-5 Penn State and a 2-3 Michigan team. This has been a rough year for me as a Penn State football fan. I mean, my 4 years at school, we won the Big Ten championship in my freshman year and then went on to win 11 games in 2 of the next 3 seasons. So you could say I'm a pretty spoiled college football fan right now. I mean, to come into an 0-5 season, that was completely unexpected, especially being ranked in the top 10 preseason. That's pretty rough, and we come in here against a 2-3 Michigan team, so look, everyone expected this to be a great game coming into the season. Now it's between 2 teams that are just trying to figure out their problems down the stretch of the season here, and you have Penn State, who is coming off a 41-21 loss at home against Iowa. Michigan coming off a 48-42 triple overtime win against Rutgers in Piscataway. All you could say is that it's pretty dark time for both of these programs right here. I mean, 2020, just a weird year in general, weird year in college football as well for sure. One fact here, Penn State has not won in Ann Arbor since 2009, and the last time that Penn State played in Ann Arbor, I was actually at the game. I went with a few of my friends. I went to visit from State College, took the flight out there on a Friday morning, got there, went to the game on Saturday with a few of my friends that went to Michigan. It did not go well for me. We lost the game 42-7. My friends left at halftime, left me in the big house alone. I refused to leave. I couldn't know that I spent money to come all the way to Michigan, to come all the way to the game, and then, I couldn't handle the fact that we were getting blown out, so my friends leave me there in the big house. My phone actually dies, and I had to find my way back to my friend's apartment by myself without anybody there. I had been to Michigan once before, but it was just when I was taking a tour. I didn't know my way around at all, and I'm walking with no phone, so nobody to contact, no GPS. I somehow find my way back to my friend's house. That was unbelievable. I don't know how I did that, but anyway, tough loss there. But Penn State, they don't win in Ann Arbor. Like they just don't. And Penn State football right now is the closest thing that I have seen to the Adam Gase New York Jets. They don't have a quarterback. Their defense is horrific. They cannot tackle. The secondary is really, really bad. And if Joe Milton was starting for Michigan this week, I would not be as worried. However, Michigan looks like they have found a quarterback. Cade McNamara replaced Joe Milton last week against Rutgers. He also played a few drives as well against Wisconsin. He looked really, really good against Rutgers last week. He brought Michigan all the way back last week, completed 27 of his 36 passes for 260 yards and 4 touchdowns. He also had a touchdown rushing, so had 5 total touchdowns of Cade McNamara against Rutgers last week. Look, Michigan is going to be a different team for the rest of the season if Cade McNamara is going to play like this each week, and I really do truly think that this kid is very, very good. Penn State, like I said, the secondary is very bad. Their safeties, they cannot cover. They're late to every single play. Michigan, if they're smart, they're going to air the ball out a ton with Cade McNamara tomorrow, and I don't think the Penn State defense will be able to stop it. In addition, like I mentioned, Penn State doesn't have any good quarterbacks. They're not going to be able to score a lot of points. Michigan's secondary isn't good, but like I said, Penn State really has not been able to score on offense at all. This is right up there with my locks of the season. Like a few weeks ago, I had Wisconsin pegged at minus like 5.5 against Michigan. That easily hit. Indiana at Michigan State, I had at minus 7.5. I had that as a lock. This is right up there with them. I think Michigan easily covers -1 against Penn State. I do not know if I will be able to morally bet this myself, but I am telling you to hammer Michigan tomorrow. I would not be surprised if this is a 20-point game or more at the Big House. I'd even consider an adjusted line if you were feeling a little bit lucky, but I really like Michigan. This is up there with one of my locks of the season. Michigan -1 at home versus Penn State. The second game that we are going to talk about today, we have Buffalo at home against Kent State. Buffalo favored by 7.5 in this game. The first Maction game that has been on my show this year. We have Maction on the weekend, which is something that you don't typically see this year at all. Now, this is a very interesting game because Buffalo and Kent State are both 3-0, and they both seem to be very similar to each other. Kent State leads all the FBS in points per game so far with 52.7. Buffalo is ninth in the FBS in points per game at 44.3. In addition, Kent State is second in the FBS in rushing yards per game at 299, and Buffalo is fifth in the FBS in rushing yards per game at 259.3. That being said, don't be too deceived by Kent State's performance so far. Now, why do I say that? Yes, they are good for a MAC team, but the teams that they have played have been absolutely awful. They played an 0-3 Eastern Michigan team, and they only won by 4. 27-23 in that game, so only putting up 27 points in that game, and then really boosting that points average in the next two games where they played Bowling Green and Akron consecutively. Now, those are the two worst teams in all the MAC, possibly the two worst teams in all the FBS. I mean, you have UMass mixed in there, but Bowling Green and Akron are up there amongst the worst teams in the FBS, so the scores of those games against Bowling Green and Akron for Kent State, they beat Bowling Green 62-24, and then they beat Akron 69-35. So, yeah, they put up 60 in both games, but letting up 35 points to Akron is absolutely horrid. Like, I cannot stress how bad that is. You have to have an ultra awful defense to let up 35 points to Akron. Now, looking at Buffalo's schedule, they also played Bowling Green, beating them 42-17. But one of the most impressive things is that they did play one of the best teams in the MAC defending champions, Miami, Ohio, and they destroyed them 42-10. They've put up at least 40 in every single game this season. In addition, Buffalo has one of the best running backs in the country. Not only in the MAC, one of the best running backs in the country, who has ran for 511 yards and 8 touchdowns on just 71 carries this season. That's 7.2 yards per carry. This guy is for sure going to be an NFL draft pick. Jared Patterson, he is really good. And Kent State is allowing 177.7 rushing yards per game. Jared Patterson is going to go absolutely nuts in this game against Kent State. Now look, Buffalo's rushing defense, they also haven't been great, but they haven't been as bad as Kent State's. I think that Buffalo is just the better team here. Like, I think Buffalo is not only the best team in the MAC, I think that they're a borderline top 25 team. That's how much I believe in Buffalo this year. I think they're going to roll right through the MAC, and I think at home in a huge game, I think they destroy Kent State, similarly to what happened against Miami, Ohio. Now, that'll completely depend on whether they could actually stop Kent State's offense, but I think that they will be able to, and I think that they destroy Kent State. I think they easily cover the 7.5-point spread. I like Buffalo minus 7.5 at home in this game. For our third and final game that we are going to talk about today, we have number 8 Northwestern on the road at Michigan State. Northwestern favored by 13 points in this game. Now let's start by talking about Michigan State. Michigan State started the season scoring 27 points at Rutgers and then followed that with scoring 27 at Michigan. Now the difference is they lost 38-27 against Rutgers and they won 27-24 against Michigan. But then they started playing good teams, and they absolutely collapsed. They played Iowa, and they lost 49-7, and then they played Indiana and lost 24-0. Now Michigan State will play the best defense and maybe even the best team that they have seen this year in the Northwestern Wildcats, ranked 8th right now in the country, playing phenomenal football for sure. Now, Northwestern, they come in 5-0, coming off that Wisconsin win last week. They're 4th in the FBS in points allowed at 12.6, and they're 15th in yards allowed per game at 314.6. A reason why you may think that this spread is a little scary is that Northwestern, they don't score a lot of points on offense. They're only averaging 25.8 points per game. But Michigan State is probably the worst team in the Big Ten right now, probably even worse than Penn State, despite the fact that they do have a win and Penn State doesn't. And I don't expect them to score more than 10 points against Northwestern. So I think that the magic number for Northwestern here is getting to between 24 and 31 points in order to cover the spread. I think that they will be able to do that against Michigan State. And I don't think Michigan State is clearing 10 in this game. Quarterback Rocky Lombardi for Michigan State, not good at all. And if they play their backup quarterback, who they did play in their last game against Indiana, his name is Peyton Thorne. He's not good at all. So I don't think that Michigan State will be able to move the ball or score any points on this Northwestern team. I think Northwestern wins this game about 24-7, 31-7, around there, or maybe even worse. They easily cover this 13-point spread. I think this is going to be very similar to when Indiana played Michigan State and they won 24-0. I actually had Indiana in that game as well. That was one of my big locks of the season. And I think this game's going to play out very similarly. I think that Northwestern comes into East Lansing and pretty much just beats the brakes off of Michigan State. I think that they'll win this game around 31-7 and cover this 13-point spread. And that's a wrap for the College Football Betting Show for November 28th, 2020. I just want to shout out and give a thank you to every single person that's been watching all my videos, everybody who's given me support on Twitter, on the comment section, on Sal's channel, over on this channel as well, everyone who's subscribed to this channel, everyone who has followed me on Twitter. It's been a great week. The Player Prop Show got a ton of attention. It was actually my most watched NFL Player Prop Show so far since I started doing them, so I greatly appreciate all the support, and just wanted to remind everyone to subscribe to this channel, like this video if you haven't already. Be sure that if you're listening on Apple, on Spotify, be sure to subscribe, be sure to leave a rating and review. That really helps me out, and be sure to be following me on Twitter at sports_Burd, because I will be possibly releasing some picks as the day goes on Saturday. Goodbye everyone, and good luck with your betting this week.